Do any of you use camera in your productions? You do, I know. Yeah. Okay, well, the camera conversation is really important because that's about good lighting and it's a partnership. The camera has an iris. In regular concert production lighting, you use the iris, you use the audience's iris. When we use camera, and I keep coming back to it, everything should be lit for camera nowadays. There's some tricks there's some rules, guidelines better, and it's a relationship between the iris and the picture, the portrait. People are mostly what camera's about. Anyway, I'll just finish this little Sammy Hagar thing. So, there's my little point. Am I popping in his thing here? Am I good? Good. Okay. Take 2. So here we are. This is the original blinds. Although we just painted them, they've revolved. This is the beginning of the show. We put up this banner here, Mass Tequila, more tequila. And the same on here. This is the old style. This is still hand-painted. All of this is hand-painted with the ultraviolet overlay. You can see here that all the handrails. This is the afternoon. Most of my pictures are from rehearsals because I tend to be busy during the day. Those are the lights that are above the panels. We went on this, it went through 3 variations of a theme and we never lost anything. By the time we got to the 3rd, I didn't have to produce anything fancy. We knew what we were talking about because we just made variations. These are the same risers, the exact same way, except there's an entrance there, stairs up. This is how we got the 75 people audience on here. We put that in, that was I can't remember what that was for. But the truss configuration was always the same. We always had these verticals with lighting, mostly dazzle, which shone through the audience, mole-face strips. I don't particularly like the flags, that's what they are. They're just postage-sized things, everybody sees them. Lines are very nice. Linear anything is, it becomes architectural. It frames things. I always had this front truss, which was separate to this truss. Here is the entrance between those blinds and these blinds, there and there. This front truss had a T-truss. I did put, on here I put Source 4s, and they were the key lights for the 4 musicians. There's a 5. Keyboard player, bass player, guitarist, and there was a tequila bar over here, and the drummer. And I always lit them with the same practice, two ellipsoidal 19-degree beam ETC Source 4s. The perfect light, actually. The perfect light for lighting people. It's the right color temperature. The light quality is very soft. It has a very even beam. There's no hot spot. Out here is an underhung follow spot, and that was his key light. Again, this height, this beam of light here, and you can see the shadow is actually from this. And this is a CAD drawing. The light source is there, so that's actually not a simulation, that's a reality. That's the man, and so it really dumps, any spill is in the floor. It doesn't splash up on anything. Even when he goes over here, it doesn't really, that would be a slight ellipse. So that was his key light. Again, I didn't light down here. This, in relation to the edge of the stage, is actually there. So this whole area down here is not front lit. I could side light him, easy. That does cause a certain amount of front lighting. But it was primarily about lighting these panels and lighting into this area. And then all of this lot is about lighting the panels and backlighting and being performance lights, party lights, dazzle, twinkle, gobos. But most of the lighting was relevant to this area here because the people are already perfectly lit from this position out here. A good 35-degree angle. That's great. You couldn't get much better than that. Because if any lower, the face gets flatter because you're flattening it out by putting light straight on it. Any higher, and you start getting big ridges and deep shadows under the chin. That's where side lights come in quite well, is to get rid of the jawline shadow. And people who have slightly heavy faces, you'll get horrible shadows, and it looks like, well, they might have slightly sagging cheeks, but suddenly they've got big jowls, and that's not good. So really, one of the things you're dealing with, especially with camera and an audience, which is still camera, is the cosmetic. You're responsible for somebody's good looks, and vanity is a big thing in any walk of life, especially when people are in the limelight. So that's pretty much how it is. There's the truss configuration. Very narrow. This is great for cross shot if you're ever shooting from this position here across the band. Here's the crowd. That's interesting stuff. Living backdrop. Performer here. You've got all this back. So we had the cross shots are really good. That's why I try to always bring scenery down the side or curve it round. And here are the source fours. This is in fact the lighting plot. See, each panel has a wash light, which can do other things. These are footlights. These, I don't know what they are. Oh, yep, they're footlights. And these are par lamps. And underneath the truss are all the moving lights. And below those, hung on king posts. I'll show you the mechanism in a moment of how this revolved. So we really are into lighting here. So these are genuine CAD drawings, and they're accurate. I'm using Vectorworks here. Really expensive, but very useful, because you can simulate from that actual light. There's a layer that you can actually generate the beam, the color, the width of the beam, and so on. You'll also get all your sheets, the detail sheets, channel assignments, and so on and so on. I rarely go that deep, because I don't need to. I use rental companies. They need to. And they don't draw from these, they draw from their own. Yep, so that's just how the lighting works, and you'll see there's... These two here and here aren't on this T-truss, the thrust truss. They're actually on they're on this truss here. They're not on the truss that comes out into the audience. And those were key for the drummer. And I actually do drummer left and drummer right. Drums are actually very attractive in pieces of equipment, and they're a central focal piece, and they look good. But it's even better if you can actually have a hot side and a dimmer side, because what you're doing is going, now this is getting into the portrait lighting. You want a key light, which gives me the whole definition. This side, in this situation, that side is actually a little lower than that side, so I'm hot down here, and I'm cooler here. And what I'm trying to do is show you my complexion on this side, and my contours and shape here. Contours and shape need shadow to create the definition. So that's filling in a little bit of the shadow. I could back that one off, and I get much more of a classic black and white portrait look. If you look at a portrait, what you're seeing is one side is always soft lit and flat, and the other side is always darker, more shadowy, and that shows your contours. The eye and the brain marry both contents together, and you see the person really as they are, which is a three-dimensional image. The fill light, the quarter light or the rear fill, is about giving me some substance, depth, and also a little bit of texture, bit of a halo effect. And that's really how a portrait's lit. And if you can light people on stage like this, even if you're just the pastor standing there at his lectern, this is the way to light him. They'll look much more interesting, more appealing, easier to watch. I'm sure he's not a vain man, but he'd appreciate a beard looking better than, and anybody. And it's a positional thing. If you can't get them to stay in one place and they want to wander, that light has to become the whole back row, and then they're just straight. If you're using haze, you're going to start having a jumble of beams behind. That you're going to have to just look at and think, is this good or is this not good? Is the crisscross pattern distracting from what I'm really going to be looking at? So that's why I've got those 4 lights. The drums is an 8x8 square, so I need more than 2 lights. So there are 2 lights on each side. There's the redundancy. but I've got them on 2 separate channels, so I can highlight this and lower light this, and you can swap them around. It's just good television. And when I say television, it's just good eye as well. The eye is a really clever camera system. Now we got to high definition. Actually, high def is too clever. It sees everything. Sometimes you need to soften it up. Otherwise, you're going to see the stitches in your scenery. Oh, stitching. Here's a tip. When you get scenery backdrops made, and you have to stitch material together, vertical seams, not horizontal seams, because when you have a tracking shot, what you're going to get is a seam right through the whole shot. The very worst, and you're limiting, especially in high definition, is you'll suddenly, or a moment where you're going to have a seam track through the picture because it's vertical. You can edit or cut to another camera at that moment if it's ugly. It's just horizontal seams go all the way with you, and they also hang slightly not so well. So if you're ever having fabric stitched or made, try and get all the seams to be vertical as opposed to horizontal. Fabricators, machinists, always seem to want to do it horizontally. It's easier on the material. I don't know. Is it the roll? Is it? Anyway, wrong button. So, the modernization of Sammy Hagar. We went to this, instead of the graffiti style, we still kept the images, but we went to this more graphic, more commercial style. The lemon really is lemon. The tequila, the agave here is much more recognizable. The chiclets were just decor. This guy was really rough and ready in the originals. Now he's looking more like a poster child. Here's how it worked. This is interesting. Can I get this to go? I have to move my cursor and... Okay, the guy up here, this is in a workshop. This guy has just switched the switch. 7 seconds. Do you hear that little chime? That's the 55-pound steel bars, round. They're 2-inch diameter. They chime when they hit each other. That stops them blowing around in the wind. So what the idea was here is, we're in the club, and Sammy would say, hey, let's go to the beach. And that was the cue. And 28 panels revolved, all on one actuator. I'll show you that again. Okay. Oh, no, I won't. I'll show you this again. This is the mechanism. Can I go back? I think I can. Here we go. So that's the stage right diagonal panel, and this is famous I Can't Drive 55. This is also overpainted. These are now digital print. We've moved on. The hand painters have all gone out of business. You can't even find them anymore except in New York. And I can't afford New York union painters. And action. Oh, damn. Let's try this again. Maybe if I went back 2 and there we go. So what's happening is these are all daisy chained together. There's one actuator. It moves 6 inches. And it tows all the way, and then along the back, and they're just 2 little steel cables. They only revolve one way, half, and then to get them back, you go the other way. And next is the mechanism. So what we have here is this is a motor shaft, gearbox, and a little piston. And it pulls in, that 6-inch motion there. On this, it's attached to this chain, and the chain goes around a cog sprocket here that rotates this spindle, which is then the center of this bar here. Here and here are 2 steel cables going to there, and so on, and so on. And around some pulleys and across the stage, and then through some more pulleys and off to the other side. 28 panels, all pulled by this motor. It's in a very solid steel frame because it's actually producing quite a lot of effort. And here it is moving. Nope, dang. Sorry, wrong button. Let's try this again. Here we go. You see there it's moved, the 6-inch movement, rotating the chain, and that's it. That's all it does. And the only thing you have to measure is here's the post. This would be the truss. Here's where the light would be. This king post here is deliberate. It lowers this point here so it can revolve underneath the moving head that's in that area there. And that was, it's not very much engineering. It's pretty rough welding. Well, I mean, good welding. This was an expensive item. It's about $1,500. And then the bits of engineering. I suppose the whole apparatus costs about $2,000. You could do it on rope. The original one we had, you pulled 2 pieces of rope and pull them around. When it got to 28, we went from 20 to 28, and it started. And originally the others were just on 2 lines. That's straightforward. When we started going around corners, it needed a lot more effort. Anyway, so the finale of this. This is the nightclub scene. This is actually daylight in an outdoor shed. There's a roof over the 10,000 people, and there's another 15,000 up on the lawn. This, I can tell because these people are lit by sunlight. But it's bright enough and dark enough, so this is the missing parts here. And it's the same old. This is about 25 years after we first started doing this. And here it is in ultraviolet. Camera doesn't register ultraviolet as ultraviolet. It shows, it lights up, where in actual fact the eye doesn't register ultraviolet very well at all. So darkness is what you see with self-illuminating items. And here's the other picture. Let's go to the beach. What's not shown are the panels that went round the corner here. It's a giant magnolia here, about 12 foot high. And I never got this on video, which is a real shame. Here's the original art. This is the original test artwork. It's just, that was really quick. More details. And that was Sammy Hagar. And that's actually how simple it was. And that is the most frugal show I've ever built, because it never left a single thing behind. Everything got reused, repainted, resized, but it was always the same material. We'd buy new material, it grew, it got bigger, but it was all done in 4 different stages, which made it very, very affordable. He's kind of an interesting guy, Sammy Hagar. He's filthy rich and doesn't like spending any money. I think it's because he started off in life as being very poor, and I think he never forget that, and there's never enough for a rainy day. Wish I was like that. So that was that. I'll keep talking about how you light things. This is the ideal method, I think, for a single person. If there's many of them, just multiply this one and keep people lit from good positions. Follow spot's the easiest way for mobiles. Now, when you're using camera, there's a big relationship between the cameraman, the vision painter, the paint shop, and the lighting person. Now, a lazy cameraman will want it to be bright so they can iris right down, so they don't have to pull focus. And it seems it's a mistake a lot of people make. Oh, well, we'll just brighten it up and then we can iris down and we'll always have sharp pictures. But you don't want always sharp pictures. Otherwise, we get that compression problem. The man in the background becomes part of the foreground because he's in focus too. You want it to be softer behind. You can actually do nice tricks. We've all seen it. You shift focus from the man in the foreground and you shift focus to the man in the rear. Don't even have to zoom. Maybe a little bit of zoom as well. But that focal shift is actually a transfer of attention from the foreground to the background to the foreground again. And it's just a trick with focus, but you won't get that if it's overlit, because the iris will be closed and the cameraman doesn't have to do any focusing. And that is a big mistake, and you see that over and over again. People overlight to compensate for the cameraman. Now, if the cameraman's not very good, you might need to overcompensate because you're helping them out. But, it's only a learning thing. So you point the camera, you zoom, zooming in, zooming out. You can come out of a shot to zoom into a shot. That's when you have few cameras. But keep it dim. The audience eye will open up. The eye will open up. You can see in almost darkness. But the camera, if you give it too much light, it kind of just ruins the picture. You can get a much better picture. And also, by using a dimmer light, you also the shadow content becomes more apparent. Consequently, you're building a better picture, cosmetic picture of the subject. And most camera is about people, except in nature films. And that's usually in daylight, and that's about animals or plants, which are pretty good subjects. Okay, this is big time performance. This is Def Leppard. This is in the round. This has no backdrops. This has a living backdrop. The drum riser used to track left and right. These are giant teapots that used to come down. They're full of lights. There's about 30 instruments in here. This is just the floor lighting and 2 lights from above. There was 2 lighting rigs, one that went round the dasher wall. Why am I just speeding through all this? Oh, okay, this is just a review of what I've done. This is Deftones, fiber optic galloping pony. He didn't want to be lit from the front. Real challenge, so we had a lot of footlights. That was a problem. This is Dwight Yoakam video screens. This is a good trick. Mirror balls on the screen, but out of sight behind the stage we had a real mirror ball that nobody could see, so we got the mirror ball patterns all through the room, but everyone thought they were coming from the video projection mirror balls. That was kind of, that was fun. He's an interesting character in the Chinese sense of the word. He's definitely interesting. He writes his own songs. He's actually very skilled and talented. Why did all that skip through? It obviously has a time code. Def Leppard was big. It was just big. It was the same thing. I had 16 follow spots. 4 people that moved on stage. They all had 4 follow spots. There was a lighting rig around the scoreboard, and then there was a lighting rig all around the dasher wall on the edge of the ice. We had trusses for days. And 8 follow spots on truss chairs around the scoreboard and 8 around the arena. How did I get? This is a question often asked. How did I manage 16 follow spots? Because it's all verbal. Well, there were only 4 items, so each person got 4 follow spots, and there were only 4 numbers because they worked in groups of 4. That was interesting. I never lit those guys in anything but 4 follow spots, 2 from high and 2 from opposite. So there'll be 2 here for the high and then 2 opposite. So there were always 4 points covering, 2 high and 2 wide. That was the simplest thing there. It was a lot of lights. It was an awful lot of management, and it was an awful lot of technology. It almost got in the way of art. There was a lot of engineering. There was a lot of science, and at the end of the day, the thing that really pleases people is the art content. Lighting is all of these things, but if you commit yourself to too much equipment, you end up being an engineer. If you commit yourself to lesser equipment, more objects, you become more of a painter. You're starting to paint pictures. And at the end of the day, people appreciate the art more than they do the science or the engineering. They appreciate big, magnificent movement. That's engineering. But at the end of the day, I would say I count one of my best cues ever was a single light going off. That was Peter Gabriel. He had a photographic lamp at the end of his piano. The song was I Shoot Into the Family Snapshot, and the final line was I Shoot Into the Light. And he said, so I'm going to play this sustain, I shoot into the light, I look in the light, everything else has gone off by now, and then when I release the sustain, the light should be out. That was impossible because, he just held the sustain on his piano, and it's the same chord, and then he let go of it. And of course the light's still on, and so let's do it the other way around. When the light goes out, release the sustain, and we got it perfectly right. It's a bit like circus horses. The conductor goes in time with the horse as opposed to the horse going in time with the music. So, anyway, yes, 1 light going off can be more powerful than 1,000 lights coming on. So, yeah, more Dwight Yoakam. This was quite early. This was early projection. We had roll-down screens. We had big pictures with fragmented screens. This is Wham! This is really early stuff. This is the Peter Gabriel thing with cranes. These are the photographic lamps. It was that light there going off. Well, actually, now it's that light. You can put lights into picture. That's why I particularly like this. I've done this on a few things. Now, this is the cranes attacking him. This is just a review of what I've kind of done. Here's a one-light gag. This is a mirror in his hand. This is a very light. He's pulled the beam, because they're on those cranes. This is a song called San Jacinto, and one of the lines is, I hold the line of light that sustains me, San Jacinto. It's about an Indian rights of manhood. He goes up the mountain, a boy, and comes down a man. It's a story. San Jacinto is just outside Palm Springs. It's a big mountain. Anyway, he's pulling the beam, and the crane comes down, and he pushes the beam, and the crane goes up, and finally pulls it down to this position, and he sings the final line, and he has a mirror in his hand, and he puts it into the light, and then he relights himself, sings the line, and then turns the mirror around the room, and then closes his hand, and as he closed his hand, it faded off. That's one light going off. That was a really powerful thing. That was so powerful, there was a 2-second pregnant pause before somebody applauded. This is serious drama, and I tell you, if it's not quantity that produces that sort of emotional shift. It's really concentrated attention. To get 24,000 people to sit and watch one man's hand is quite an accomplishment, I think. But it takes a lot of choreography. More journey, floating great trusses with skins. If you ever hang parallel truss, these are just genie hoists. You meet man lifts, taking the top end off, concertinas, fabric strung between aluminum squares hung on little aircraft steel cables. Oh, look. These are those blinds. In this case, they didn't revolve. This is Incubus. Again, these are scissor lifts, actually. And they just go up and down, and they change shape and size, and they moved around. And this is Paul Simon. That's actually real simple. This is all Endebele, which is a tribe and a style of artwork. All he had was a cross truss, and it was filled in with Mike and the Mechanics. This is rope, and in front of that are expanded metal mesh. So you've got 2 layers. You light the mesh, you see the mesh. And then behind it's the rope. Light the rope, but not the mesh, you see the rope. Light them both together, and you see them both. So that's layering. This is Phil Collins. Why is this guy so fast? This was a big production. We built 3 of these sets. This is Tears for Fears. Again, you see how I'm using fabric between trusses? I've already bought the space by putting the truss up there. The fabric costs nothing, but it's a huge amount of space and opportunity to isolate a stage, and also opportunity to light stuff. This is, again, yes. More yes. Black RP screen in the rear of it there, which is taking projection. Oh, that's my website. You'll see all this on there. You can find it there. Is that the end? That is the end. No, there's more to it.